Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is going to be talking about the next step in the Dota Dojo, which for me feels like addressing the fact that the rules that I've put in place so far are far too focused on what not to do for you guys rather than what to do. And I feel like I've effectively created a minefield of sorts for people to avoid these bad actions rather than drawing a clear path forward for you guys, knowing what we're trying to accomplish and how we want to accomplish it, the questions you guys can be asking yourselves so that you can get the most out of this community, so that you can best contribute to this community, and that the community can grow and move forward together. Because if we are all focused on what not to do, that's just going to create a lot of anxiety, fear, hesitation, tension. And so before we go further into this video, I would like to formally apologize because I realize that is rooted, the way I'm talking to you guys is rooted in the way that I talk to myself, which is not exactly healthy in the sense of don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, because then you're always on the lookout for mistakes that you could be making. And I think that plays a huge role in my Dota game, and it's also played a role in my life in general. And I think it's bleeding into this community as well. So there is a reason that I've been doing this, though, right? It's not like completely unwarranted and it's not out of nowhere. And I believe that that's because there are needs that this community is meant to address for myself. And clearly they resonated with a lot of people as I've been building the community. We have over 2,000 members so far. Videos on this channel are getting way higher views than I've ever gotten on my personal channel. And so I have to believe that your guys' needs overlap with mine to some degree. And I'd love to, as we move forward, learn more and more about the needs you guys have within your gaming experience so that this community can better serve you. That's something we'll get to further down the road. Now, what exactly did I've done a little reflecting, and I've thought, what are the needs that I have from this community? And I feel like I created this community because I felt the need to be able to express my creativity freely, to be able to make mistakes without fear of judgment from myself or others, and also being able to try to communicate with others with the idea that they will give me the benefit of the doubt that my intentions are pure and that they basically won't rush to judge my intentions. A lot of judgment discussion here. And I've realized that requires a deep amount of trust between people, faith in humanity of sorts. And as I've tried to already start preaching that to people in the community a bit, I am met with that initial hesitation but that's not how the world works. And so I guess before I go further in this video, I would like us all to, rather than fixate on what the norm is, what the status quo is in the situation that we've adjusted to, I'd like us to always ask ourselves, okay, why am I doing the thing I'm doing? Is it rooted in not trusting others? Is it rooted in like people judging me or feeling unsafe? And if I understand that that's what I've had to do for some time now, but is that a purpose that I think I want everyone in this community to have, right? Do we want people to feel so unsafe that they have to deflect what they're actually asking? Do we feel like they need to troll and make jokes because they're worried about asking an authentic question, right? So whatever's been driving your behavior when you come to the server and we talk to you about it, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is that drive? And do I wish that upon other people? And is that something that I believe we can change within this community? So, I have a lot of notes here. I don't normally write a lot of notes for my videos. But the part of my notes here that I see is that time and time again, I've seen that lack of trust around us in the Dota community in general. Like, we don't really trust that people won't resort to immediate judgment when we mess up in a game, when we say something, when we ask something of others. We trust that they'll not care enough to hear our concerns or work through a problem with us. And people are automatically projecting bad intentions on us. I ask people, if somebody asks you a question in the server, like maybe not you directly, but they ask a question into the void, I always try to ask myself, what is this person trying to get out of this question? And I encourage you guys to meet that person face value for whatever their question may be, because that is assuming that they are being authentic with their question. If you don't fully understand their question, then that boils down to asking them questions to better understand the question that they're trying to get answered, right? But what I've heard is things like people inviting each other into DMs when the person just asked a surface level question. And I asked why, it seems like quite a bit of a stretch. It's not like innately wrong for you to invite somebody into DMs, but if somebody's just posting on a public forum and your immediate reaction is to invite them to a DM, that is a big stretch. In my head, in like the dating world, that's like the equivalent of somebody saying, hey, would you like to go grab some coffee? And I go, sure. Would you also like to come over to my house and stay the night? Of course, it's an exaggeration, but when I talk to people about this kind of stuff, which has happened about 3 or 4 times, it's always rooted in, if I don't talk to them in a DM, I don't really trust that they will take the time and energy to listen to what I have to say. So I do that so that my time is well spent enough helping this person. And I can only say, I could give countless more examples. I've done about 10 at this point. But every time I talk to somebody, it ends up being a lack of belief that their time will be well spent. It's a lack of belief that enough people will care about what they're asking for help on. And I'm not guaranteeing that every question, every forum you ever post in the server will get traction, that it will get attention, and that you will get your needs met and your questions answered. But I would like to draw attention to these tactics, these strategies that we've all come up with in our outside of this community lives, and ask ourselves, is there a bit of manipulation behind this? Is it because there's a lack of trust that we feel like we kind of have to play these mental gymnastics to get what we want? And that's like one of the core questions I encourage all of you to ask yourself anytime you post here, anytime that you're responding to somebody, because this lack of trust is the one common factor that I've seen so far in the server. And I'm not telling you to not trust people, but what I'm telling you as the path forward is, whenever you're not sure of what to ask, or you've typed out your question, just ask yourself, is this trusting the good intentions of others? Is this trusting that people will care enough to answer my question? Is this trusting the members of this community to work together to better ourselves, to better everyone in the community, to contribute to the community, etc.? Are we rooted in trust, or are we rooted in fear or anxiety or anything like that, shame, guilt, that people aren't going to care enough? That's like the first thing I'd really encourage you guys to do, because I think online gaming especially has just created this entire like vacuum of people being allowed to say whatever they want to say, bad actors, and they're going to exist in our community too. But if we don't assume that they're not there, then we're also going to create bad actors out of people who are not, right? So that's the goal. I know it's a bit tough, but if you guys are going to type in the community, I really encourage you to ask yourself that question. And so, even though I've talked about the fact that the rules I've put in place were fixated on what not to do, I would like to talk about the rules, because they're in place for a reason. It is important that we don't do these things, but I want to offer you guys a alternative, a suggestion. If you've been given a warning about this kind of stuff, if you generally struggle with this kind of stuff, give a bit of clarity on this kind of stuff so you don't necessarily feel so hesitant to make these mistakes. And I'd also like to include that I've instructed the moderator team that it's all about how you guys respond to our criticism, and it's also on us to give you space to feel like you're not getting judged, that we're just here to talk to you about anything you've said or done. And so we take responsibility and accountability for anything we come to you guys with. But we care way more about your response than the infraction itself. So if you are to receive a warning and a mod comes and talks to you, which you always will get if they're giving you a warning, that they are completely in the right, and hopefully we'll always do it where if you respond in a positive way, we will remove the warning. So I'm trying to create an environment where you're not as afraid to get a warning, because knowing that if you're willing to talk with us about it, that we will happily remove the warning afterwards. But for each individual warning, I feel like it's important to talk about what the root of this is and the alternative, as I mentioned. So we got the whole vent, which is the VENTT. And first we have victim mentality and accountability. So for me, it's like, due to this rule, it's become clear that people have become afraid or hesitant to like post problems, like to look like they're whining about their emotions or about something crappy that happened in their game. And so I'd like to say that you are allowed to talk about your negative experiences in this server. And if you're going to do so, it's okay if it ends up being venting or whining, but we're going to call you out on it and have that whole process that I just talked about. But before you post something that is about a problem or concern that you have in your games or in the community, I'd like to encourage you to ask yourself these questions. What exactly am I hoping to receive from the responses in this discussion that I am creating? What is the need that I have to post this message in the first place? And what can I do to be as transparent as possible about what exactly I'm asking? So I'd like you to think, in an ideal world, that if 100 people read your question, they would all have the same understanding of that question. So anytime that your intentions or reasoning is rooted in something that's not transparent, then what I've seen so far is I have to ask you why you said this message in the first place. And I promise you, in all of these cases, if you gave me 1,000 guesses, I would have never exactly guessed. A perfect example was a discussion I had just recently where a guy asked if matchmaking is rigged. I asked him why he posted this, and then he said he wanted to talk about his experiences in matchmaking. And then I asked him, why did he then post the content or post the title as "Is Matchmaking Rigged?" And he said that it was because if he wanted to catch people's attention, he wanted a more buzzword title. He felt like if he just posted about his matchmaking experiences, that people wouldn't be hooked enough or interested enough to talk about it. So he had to effectively lure them in, is how I would describe it, in order to get people to talk about it. So that's a perfect example where his intention was to talk about his matchmaking experiences, and that was not at all what came through in the post or the question. So it's not that we expect you guys to be able to do that all on your own, but that's what we're going to be working towards with you to get done when it comes to victim mentality and accountability. Because the accountability aspect of this is taking accountability in the questions we're asking. What discussions are we creating in the server? And is it positive for everyone involved? And how much transparency is there? Next up in the elitism and exclusion category, this rule isn't as much about the people who post, but it's oftentimes about the people who respond. Largely people who seem like they think they have all the answers. So what I would like to say is that if somebody asks a question, asks for help on the server, and you're going to respond to it, I encourage you to ask yourself these questions, especially if you struggle with like ego, elitism, something that I feel like a lot of people in Dota struggle with, myself included, is, am I comparing my skill or knowledge to that of this person that I am answering? I've found that comparison pretty much always results in ego-driven thinking and is a central part of this problem. Do I understand exactly what this person is asking for? If not, what questions can I ask them to get to the root of their question? A lot of times I've found that unsolicited advice or know-it-all behavior comes from assuming we know exactly what this person is asking when it's not really transparent. So it's kind of like if they're not asking the best questions, we'll often get people giving unsolicited advice. So that's why there's accountability in the questions you're asking, but there also needs to be accountability in the people answering the questions to really ask themselves, how positive am I that I know exactly what this person is asking? And if you think you know exactly what they're asking, don't even hesitate to ask a question anyways. You can even say, I believe this is what you're asking. Is this what you're asking? That's a definitely assured way to make sure that you are not elitist or exclusionary in the way that you're talking and answering people's questions. After you have typed your response to the person, if you choose to go through with it, does my wording sound like I know more than this person? I, as a 10K player, can talk to a 2K player in a way that instills knowledge and mentoring that does not give them the impression that I know more than them. And that is a very big distinction that needs to be made to avoid elitism and exclusionary behavior. And so asking myself, do I sound like I know more than this person? And lastly, do I have the patience to work through this person's problem right now? Because I've found that my unsolicited advice and also my know-it-all behavior also can be rooted in a lack of patience and just wanting to get this problem over with. I'm like frustrated or annoyed by this noob's question, right? But this is the stuff where if I ask myself if I have that patience, maybe it's just best I don't answer the question. Next up, we got negativity and pessimism. I feel like this can be about the initial post or the response itself. If you struggle with this sort of thing, if we've given you a warning for this sort of thing, or if you just like to work on this sort of thing, I ask myself, when I type a message or a post or response, what kind of vibe am I giving off with my message? If I feel the inclination to say something negative or pessimistic, what is the root drive of me to type this in the first place? Is this a response to something I've experienced recently? Am I having a bad day? Did this person trigger something? In the case of party poopers, people who I've seen in the share a win channel, especially, where somebody says, hey, I gained rank, and the person says, just you wait. Like, as you climb, people are shitty. And it's like, when you are a party pooper, ask yourself, are you jealous of this person's achievement? Are you envious of the excitement that they're feeling because you haven't felt that in some time? A lot of times I feel like party pooping is a result of jealousy of some type, but there are other causes. But more so like, why did I feel the need to party poop this guy? If you are in the shares win channel or anybody's talking positively, I would encourage you before you type your response or before you finish your response, are you matching their energy? Are you also being positive and celebrating their win? It is equally important that we reflect on our mistakes and learn from them as it is to celebrate our wins and be excited about our triumphs, because these things go hand in hand. Usually I've found if you don't do one, then you don't do the other. And in order to have that happy harmony of everyone celebrating their wins and also reflecting, we need both. Next up, we got toxicity and belittling. If you're still with me, I appreciate it. When I respond harshly to someone's statements, questions, or actions, what is driving force behind it? What is the emotion behind it? How would I feel if the situation was reversed and someone said that exact same thing to me? So this is more so, I had difficulty constructing questions about how to avoid this in the first place, but if we call you out for this, I'd like you to reverse the conversation in your head and say, oh, what was this person feeling? Like, were they excited? Were they happy? And if I were feeling that way, would I want somebody to say what I said to them? Then ask a little bit of reflection that I think can be highlighted at the start of this video, which is this how I talk to myself? Like when I accomplish something, maybe, does this way of talking to myself help me reach my potential? So if you're not helping yourself, whatever you're saying to others is probably not helping them either. And lastly, but not least, is trolling and instigating. For me, this is the one that really was largely covered by sarcasm. And I think it needs to be mentioned that the point of this server, the meaning of this server, which we're still working on like a mission statement of sorts, is everything that I mentioned at the start of this video, which is we're trying to work on building a place that people can be creative, ask questions, feel free from judgment, and overall create a happier, more enjoyable experience in learning the game of Dota and just nerding out about the game, right? So if you are saying something sarcastic or trolling or instigating, I would just like you to ask yourself when you make a joke, because a lot of jokes, people who are making the joke often feel like it's harmless, right? But what I'm about to type meaningfully contributing to the goal of this server, right? Is it contributing to what I believe the goals of this community are? So a lot of times it's not necessarily about the fact that you were wrong to make that joke. It's about the fact that there's a right place and a right time for everything, right? And in this server, we are trying to work towards a goal, and everything that is not working towards that goal is effectively, in my opinion, a distraction. And a lot of these things, these jokes, anything that's like trolling or memey, I would also encourage you to say, could I say this in a private chat with somebody? Is this an inside joke? Is this a joke that if 1,000 people read it, they would all have the same understanding of the joke? The reason why that's so important is because we're trying to create an environment where somebody loads into the server, they've never been here before, they've never seen that channel before, and they feel like they're in the know, they feel like they understand, they feel like they belong there, they feel like they understand the purpose of that specific channel, that specific feature, because the messages that are in there and in the community in general fit what we're trying to do here. And that's why the overall meaning of the community means so much, not only when it comes to trolling and instigating, but as a whole. So I know I've talked your guys' ear off, and I really do appreciate if you're still listening right now, because that means you really do care about this community and hearing what I have to say. The focus of this video was to really mention the fact that this is about what we want to do moving forward rather than what not to do. Those rules are still going to be in place, but I hope you guys can all use this as a reference point that if you ever get called out on these things, or you feel like you're struggling with these things, or you're not sure what we mean or what we want you to do, that you can use this as a guide to what questions to ask yourself. And perhaps maybe in the comments, you guys can let me know if you think there's better questions, or maybe my description of the questions wasn't very accurate. Part of my old toxic thinking was that when I said something and I didn't like the response that somebody gave me, it was always on them that they didn't understand. And that's very black and white. It's very judgmental, very ego related. So I would just like to say that my goal is that everyone in the community feels like they understand what we're trying to do here. They understand what we're trying to avoid, but more so what we're trying to replace it with. And if there are people in the community that are still listening and they care, obviously that means you do care, and you don't understand something I've said today, please let me know. Let me know in the comments here. Let me know in the community itself. I look forward to working with all of you. The moderator team has been doing an amazing job so far. We're looking at probably renaming the moderators because we don't want us to be seen as like hierarchical. We don't want you guys to think of us as like the judge, juror, and executioner. We want you guys more think of us as like guides in the community, as somebody who's helping steer you in the right direction under the vision that I'm trying to create. So thank you so much for watching, guys. That's going to be it for today. A little bit of a longer video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.